Security breach in human quarters, Section 7. Juvenile Zarketh loose. Repeat, Juvenile Zarketh is loose. Security Chief Kael'thas didn't run. He sprinted. Behind him, his 6-person team moved in practiced formation, weapons already armed, safeties off. A juvenile Zarketh. According to YouTube analytics, 98% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. Possibly the most dangerous organism in known space, and one was loose on his station, in the human quarters. How long? He barked into his comm. 4 minutes since breach detection, his second-in-command replied, voice tight. No screams, no sounds at all. No sounds. That was worse. That meant it was already over. Kael'thas's primary hand trembled as he overrode the door lock. His people had trained for this scenario. Trained for the 3 seconds of chaos a juvenile Zarketh could unleash before it was neutralized. 3 seconds. That's all it had taken one to kill 4 galactic marines in their armor. These creatures were apex predators before they even reached adolescence. Unpredictable, violently territorial. And now one was with a human. The door slid open. Kael'thas expected blood, carnage, the aftermath of another tragic first contact failure with the most aggressive species in the known galaxy. Instead, he found Emma Johnson sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by disassembled FTL engine components, humming something melodic under her breath. Her gray maintenance coveralls were stained with grease. Her dark hair pulled back in a messy knot, and her hands moved with practiced efficiency as she calibrated a thruster valve. And beside her, close enough to strike, sat a juvenile Zarketh. Its obsidian carapace gleamed under the quarter's lights, 6 limbs folded in an approximation of rest, its sensor cluster focused intently on the human. In one of its primary manipulator appendages that could punch through reinforced steel, it held a torque wrench. Almost done, Emma said without looking up. Just hand me the plasma calibrator. No, sweetie, the other one. Yeah, that's the one. The Zarketh's sensor cluster swiveled, examining the tools scattered around them. Then, with impossible delicacy, it picked up a different tool and extended it toward Emma's outstretched hand. Perfect. Good girl. You're such a good helper. Kael'thas's weapon remained trained on the predator, his entire body locked in place. Behind him, he heard someone's breathing accelerate toward hyperventilation. He understood completely. What he was witnessing violated every principle of xenobiology, every documented behavior pattern, every survival instinct that evolution had burned into sentient minds across the galaxy. Human Emma Johnson, he said, his voice carefully controlled despite his racing pulse. Please do not move. Emma's head turned, finally noticing the armed response team filling her doorway. Oh, hey, Chief. Could you guys keep it down? I'm almost done here and I really need to concentrate. This FTL regulator is finicky. The Zarketh made a sound, a clicking, chittering noise from somewhere deep in its thorax. Kael'thas recognized it from the xenobiology briefings. It meant the predator was preparing to strike, except the creature didn't strike. It shifted slightly, adjusting its grip on the wrench, and the clicking continued in what almost sounded like a pattern, a rhythm. I know, Emma said to the predator. These fittings are ridiculous, right? Whoever designed this model clearly never had to actually fix one in the field. She fitted the calibrator into place and made a minute adjustment. There, see? Sometimes you just need the right touch. Commander Vexia, Kael'thas sub-vocalized into his secure channel, never taking his eyes off the scene before him. We have a situation. I need you in human quarters, Section 7. Immediately. And you're going to want to see this yourself. I don't think anyone would believe me if I reported it. Define situation. Vexia's response came through. A human is performing mechanical repairs. A juvenile Zarketh is assisting her. They appear to be... He struggled with the words, working together. The silence on the other end lasted 3 full seconds. Say that again. The human has somehow achieved cooperative behavior with a juvenile Zarketh. It's holding her tools, responding to verbal commands, making non-aggressive vocalizations. Evacuate the section. Full quarantine proto... Sir, the human refuses to move. She says she's almost done and needs to concentrate. The predator appears calm. Another silence. I'm on my way. Don't let that thing kill anyone before I arrive. And for the ancestors' sake, get xenobiologist Zara down there. Emma set down the calibrator and reached for another component. The Zarketh immediately released the wrench, its appendage hovering in anticipation. Okay, now I need the molecular fuser. That one, yeah. Thank you. The predator made that clicking sound again, and Emma actually smiled at it. Kael'thas had served in the Galactic Security Force for 17 cycles. He'd survived 2 border wars, a diplomatic incident with the Krev Collective, and a hull breach on Deep Space Station Omega. None of it had prepared him for watching a human mechanic treat a juvenile Zarketh like a cooperative colleague. How? One of his team members whispered. How is she still alive? I don't know, Kael'thas replied. I genuinely don't know. The door behind them opened again, and Xenobiologist Zara rushed in, already suited in full protective gear. Her 4 eyes went wide behind the helmet's transparent barrier as she took in the scene. That's impossible, she breathed. We've established that, Kael'thas said. Now tell me what we're looking at. Zara moved closer, her scanning equipment held before her like a shield. Zarketh juveniles are more dangerous than the adults. Their neural pathways aren't fully formed. They're unpredictable, hyper-aggressive, incapable of recognizing non-threats. They attack anything that moves, anything that breathes, anything that exists in their perceived territory. She adjusted her scanner, and numbers cascaded across her display. What I'm seeing here contradicts every documented case study, every observation, every principle of Zarketh behavioral psychology. Emma finished fusing 2 components together and sat back with a satisfied grunt. There we go. That should hold for another few thousand light years at least. She patted the predator on what Kael'thas assumed was its shoulder, if such creatures could be said to have shoulders. Couldn't have done it without you, helper. The Zarketh's sensor cluster oriented toward Emma, and it made a different sound, lower, more resonant. Almost pleased. Zara, Kael'thas said quietly. What does that vocalization mean? The xenobiologist's scanning equipment nearly slipped from her hands. That sound has never been documented. Not in juveniles, not in any Zarketh outside of... She trailed off. Outside of what? Outside of maternal bonding situations. Adult females make that sound to their offspring during the brief nurturing period before abandonment. It indicates contentment, safety, trust. Zara's voice had gone hollow. Juvenile Zarketh don't experience those emotions. They're not neurologically capable. It's literally impossible. Emma stood, brushing dust off her coveralls, and the predator rose with her, matching her movements with fluid grace. She stretched, joints popping audibly, and picked up her tools one by one, depositing them back into her maintenance kit. The Zarketh watched her, seemingly fascinated by the mundane activity. Human Emma. Commander Vexia's voice came from the doorway, and Kael'thas turned to see his superior officer standing rigidly at attention, all 4 of her hands clenched into fists. I need you to very carefully explain what has occurred here. Oh, hey, Commander, Emma said cheerfully. Sorry about the mess. I was doing some preventative maintenance on my personal FTL kit. Regulations say we need to check the regulators every 6 months, and I figured Saturday afternoon was as good a time as any. Then this little one wandered in about an hour ago. She gestured to the Zarketh, which had now moved to stand directly beside her, close enough that its carapace nearly touched her leg. She seemed curious about what I was doing, so I figured, why not? Extra set of hands never hurt anyone. Extra set of hands, Vexia repeated flatly. That is a juvenile Zarketh. It has extra sets of appendages specifically evolved to disembowel prey items. Emma blinked. Well, yeah, but she wasn't using them for that. She was helping me with the calibration sequence, actually really good at holding steady tension on the components. Better than some of the mechanics in the bay, honestly. The Zarketh made that clicking sound again. See? Emma said. She agrees. Kael'thas watched Commander. Vexia's expression cycle through disbelief, horror, confusion, and finally land somewhere in the vicinity of resigned bewilderment. It was the same journey his own mind had taken in the past 5 minutes, and he suspected everyone in the room was experiencing similar psychological whiplash. Human Emma, Zara said, her voice carefully controlled in the way people spoke when reality had stopped making sense, and they were trying very hard to pretend otherwise. Do you understand what you've done here? This creature's species has triggered 12 separate first contact wars. Their juveniles have a kill count in the thousands. What you're describing, cooperation, communication, trust, it's not possible. Their brains literally don't work that way. Emma looked down at the Zarketh, which looked back up at her. I mean, she seems pretty cooperative to me. Didn't attack, didn't get aggressive, just wanted to see what I was working on. When I asked her to help, she helped. Seems pretty straightforward. Straightforward, Vexia said. You've achieved what centuries of diplomatic efforts, xenopsychological studies, and behavioral modification attempts have failed to accomplish, and you consider it straightforward. I mean, Emma shrugged. Yeah. The station's alert system chose that moment to emit a new alarm. A different tone, deeper and more urgent. Kael'thas's comm crackled to life. All personnel, be advised. Adult Zarketh vessel detected on approach vector. ETA 15 minutes. Identification indicates this is the maternal unit for the juvenile currently aboard station. Recommend immediate evacuation protocols. The blood drained from Kael'thas's face. If a juvenile Zarketh was dangerous, an adult female protecting her offspring was apocalyptic. We need to evacuate this section, now. Everyone needs to calm down, Emma said. But her voice was drowned out by Commander Vexia already barking orders into her comm, by Zara frantically pulling up behavioral data on adult Zarketh combat patterns, by Kael'thas's team automatically falling into defensive positions. The juvenile Zarketh, responding to the sudden surge of tension in the room, rose to its full height, still small by adult standards, but large enough to loom over Emma. Its manipulator appendages spread wide in what every species in the galaxy recognized as a threat display. Except it wasn't facing the armed security team. It was facing them, positioning itself between Emma and the door, its sensor cluster swiveling to track every movement of every person in the room who wasn't the human. Oh no, Zara whispered. It's bonded. It thinks we're threats to its what? Vexia demanded. Zara's voice came out strangled. To its pack member. Stand down, Emma said firmly to the juvenile Zarketh. They're not threats, just scared. Relax. The predator's threat display held for 3 seconds before its appendages folded back. It settled beside Emma. Sensor, cluster still tracking the armed personnel. See? Everyone's fine. That creature just displayed territorial protection behavior toward you, Commander Vexia said carefully. Do you understand the implications? She was protecting me because you all came in with weapons drawn, Emma replied. Maybe a tiny bit over the top. Zara's scanning equipment worked frantically. Commander, I'm reading pack bonding indicators. This juvenile has formed an attachment bond with the human. Impossible, Vexia said flatly. Zarketh don't form attachments. The neurochemistry doesn't lie. How did this happen? Kael'thas lowered his weapon slightly. Emma looked confused. I didn't really do anything. She came in while I was working. Seemed curious. I talked to her, showed her what I was doing, asked if she wanted to help. She did. You asked a juvenile Zarketh if it wanted to help, and it complied. Yeah. I had a dog back on Earth who'd bring me tools when I was fixing my truck. Same principle. Predators are smart. They like having jobs. Did you just compare a Zarketh to a domesticated Earth canine? Zara said slowly. Different biology, sure, but the principle holds. Most predators aren't mindless killing machines. They're intelligent, social creatures who respond to respect and clear communication. Kael'thas felt his worldview crack. This maintenance worker was casually dismantling centuries of xenobiological doctrine. Station Director Jotaro has been notified, one of his team members reported. He's requesting immediate visual feed. Granted, Vexia said, and tapped her wrist comm. A holographic display shimmered to life, showing the austere features of Station Director Jotaro, his expression already set in lines of deep concern. Commander Vexia, I've been reviewing the security footage and I need you to confirm what I'm seeing because my analytical systems are suggesting sensor malfunction. No malfunction, Director. What you're seeing is accurate. Jotaro's eyes tracked to Emma, then to the juvenile Zarketh sitting calmly beside her. Human Emma Johnson, I need you to, very carefully, very precisely, explain to me how you are still alive. Emma said. I'm not really sure how to answer that. I'm alive because nothing tried to kill me? The juvenile Zarketh? She's been great, actually. Really helpful. Good with fine motor control for something her age. The Zarketh made that clicking sound again, and Emma smiled down at it. Yes, I'm talking about you. You did good work today. Jotaro closed all four of his eyes, a gesture Kael'thas recognized as the director's way of processing overwhelming information. I'm contacting the Zarketh ambassador. This situation has diplomatic implications beyond my authority to handle. Is that really necessary? Emma asked. I mean, I finished my repairs. I was just going to... The juvenile's mother is 8 minutes out, Vexia interrupted. When she arrives and finds her offspring in close proximity to alien species, the standard response is immediate lethal force against all perceived threats. All perceived threats, Emma repeated. So, everyone in this room except me? And the station itself, potentially. Adult Zarketh have been known to damage infrastructure in defense of their young. Emma looked down at the juvenile. Hey, so, hypothetically, if your mom shows up and sees all these people with weapons around me, she's probably going to freak out, right? The creature's sensor cluster rotated toward Emma, then toward the security team, then back to Emma. Right, Emma said, as if she'd received a clear answer. So maybe everyone could lower the weapons, and possibly back up a bit. Just giving some space here might help with the whole not triggering an interstellar incident thing. We cannot leave you alone with two Zarketh, Jotaro said from the holographic display. The risk, Director, with respect, the only risk right now is making this little one feel threatened, which is going to make her mother feel threatened, which is going to turn this whole situation into exactly the disaster everyone's worried about. Emma's voice had lost its casual tone, replaced by something more serious. I work with machinery every day. You know what causes most accidents? People panicking and making sudden moves. Same principle applies here. Kael'thas found himself weighing the logic. Every instinct, every training protocol, every survival mechanism in his mind screamed that they should evacuate immediately. But the human's words carried a strange weight, the confidence of someone who actually understood what was happening while everyone else was operating on outdated assumptions. Commander, he said quietly, she might be right. Vexia's mandibles clicked together in agitation. You cannot be serious. Look at the juvenile's behavior pattern. It's only displayed aggression when we displayed aggression first. When the human spoke calmly, it calmed. Every xenobiological model we have says this shouldn't work, but it is working. Maybe we need to stop applying those models. This is insane, Zara muttered. But she was furiously documenting everything on her scanning equipment. This is absolutely insane, and I'm witnessing it happen, and I still don't believe it. The holographic display flickered, and suddenly a new figure appeared beside Director Jotaro. Kael'thas recognized Ambassador Xylax immediately. The Zarketh's diplomatic representative to the Galactic Council, one of the few adults of his species who had learned to interact with other races without immediate violence. Xylax's appearance was imposing even in holographic form. Massive carapace, sensor cluster that could track multiple targets simultaneously. Appendages that had been modified with diplomatic ornamentation to appear less threatening. It didn't work. He was still terrifying. "I have been briefed," Xilax said, his voice a resonant rumble that came through the translator as carefully modulated standard. "This is an unprecedented situation. The maternal unit approaching your station is Karsha, one of our species' most accomplished hunters. When she discovers her offspring among aliens..." He trailed off. "She's going to lose it?" Emma supplied helpfully. "Lose it is an insufficient description for the violence that will ensue." Xilax's sensor cluster focused on Emma. "Human, I do not know what you have done, but you have achieved something impossible. My species does not bond. We do not cooperate. We do not trust. These are fundamental truths of Zarketh nature." "Well," Emma said, scratching the juvenile behind what might have been its auditory sensor, "maybe those aren't truths. Maybe they're just habits? Bad habits that everyone assumes are permanent?" The juvenile leaned into the contact, making that resonant, pleased sound again. Xilax went completely still. That vocalization. Juveniles do not make that vocalization. "She's made it like 6 times in the last hour," Emma said. "Usually when I thank her for helping or when I pet her. Seems like a happy sound to me." "It is," Xilax said slowly. "The sound our offspring make when they feel safe with their mothers, during the brief period before dispersal when we still maintain contact. I have not heard that sound in decades. Most Zarketh never hear it at all." "So she feels safe," Emma said. "That's good, right?" "That's impossible," Xilax corrected. "Juveniles feel threatened by everything. It's a survival mechanism. They cannot feel safe because safety is an evolutionary weakness." "And yet," Zara said, her voice slightly manic, "here we are, watching impossibility occur in real time." 5 minutes until Karsha's arrival," someone reported. Emma took a deep breath. "Okay, here's what's going to happen. Everyone is going to stay calm. I'm going to stay right here with..." She looked at the juvenile. "You know, we should probably give you a name. Can't just keep calling you the juvenile. How about Scout? You were scouting around when you found me." The Zarketh made a clicking, chirping combination that sounded distinctly pleased. "Scout it is," Emma said, then looked up at the assembled authorities, weapons, and diplomatic representatives. "I'm going to stay here with Scout. When her mother arrives, I'm going to explain that everything's fine, that Scout wasn't in any danger, and that this can all resolve peacefully. Everyone else should probably not be standing here with weapons drawn when that happens." "Absolutely not," Vexia said. "Commander," Emma replied, "do you have a better plan?" The silence was answer enough. "Thought so," Emma said, and sat back down on the floor. Scout immediately settled beside her, close enough that their shoulders, or shoulder equivalents, touched. "So let's all just take a breath and see what happens when we try talking first and panicking second, for once." Kael'thas watched his commander, his director, and a Zarketh ambassador all struggle with the same realization. They were about to let a human maintenance worker serve as first contact diplomat with one of the galaxy's most dangerous species, and they were doing it because none of them had any better ideas. "This," Jotaro said heavily, "will either be remembered as the most brilliant diplomatic breakthrough in recent history, or the most catastrophic failure of command judgment I have ever made." "Let's aim for the first one," Emma said cheerfully, and scratched Scout behind her sensor cluster again. Scout's pleased rumble resonated through the room, a sound that shouldn't exist mixing with the countdown to an encounter that shouldn't be survivable. 3 minutes until contact. The docking clamps engaged with a metallic shudder. Every person except Emma flinched. "She's here," Kael'thas said, weapon raised despite knowing its uselessness against an adult Zarketh. Scout's sensor cluster swiveled toward the door, then back to Emma, making a questioning sound. "It's okay," Emma said softly. "That's your mom. The sound reached them first. Click, scrape, click of Zarketh locomotion, magnified, heavier. It echoed like a countdown. The footsteps stopped outside. 5 seconds of silence. Worse than any alarm. The door override engaged. Karsha had command codes and opened. Karsha filled the doorway. Massive, twice Scout's size, carapace scarred from decades of combat. Her sensor cluster swept the room, cataloging threats, then locked onto Scout beside Emma. Karsha's roar combined threat, fury, and maternal rage into something that bypassed rational thought. Every person stepped backward, except Emma, who stood calmly between the adult Zarketh and security. "Hey there," Emma said. "You must be Scout's mom. I'm Emma. Your daughter's been helping me fix my FTL regulator." Karsha's attention snapped to the human who had just casually positioned herself as a physical barrier. For a moment, that stretched into eternity, the predator simply stared. Scout chirped, that same pleased, safe sound, and moved to stand beside Emma, not behind her. "She's really good with tools," Emma continued, as if she wasn't one wrong word away from being torn apart. "Natural talent for mechanical work. You should be proud." Karsha took one step forward, then another. Her appendages spread wide in unmistakable threat display. "Ma'am?" Emma said, voice still calm but firmer now. "I know this looks bad. Bunch of armed people around your kid. But Scout came to visit me while I was working. She wasn't in any danger. Nobody hurt her. Nobody even tried." Another step. Karsha was close enough now that Emma had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact with the sensor cluster. Scout made a sound. Urgent, insistent. She moved fully in front of Emma, mimicking her mother's protective stance but facing Karsha instead of the room. The juvenile was protecting Emma from her own mother. Karsha froze. "Scout trusts me," Emma said quietly. "I know that probably doesn't make sense to you, but she helped me today, and I made sure she was safe, and she knows that. Whatever you've been taught about how your species works, maybe it's wrong. Maybe it's just what everyone assumed because nobody tried anything different." Karsha's appendages slowly folded. Her sensor cluster tilted, examining Scout, then Emma, then Scout again. Scout chirped again, moving back to Emma's side, and made a complex series of clicks and whistles that sounded distinctly like communication. Karsha responded, not with aggression, but with that same deep, resonant rumble Scout had made earlier. The sound of contentment, of safety, of trust. "Holy ancestors," Zilax breathed through the hologram. "They're talking, mother and offspring, actually communicating. This never happens. We separate them before language develops." Emma slowly extended her hand, palm up, toward Karsha. "I promise, I'd never hurt her." The adult Zarketh stared at the offered hand for a long moment. Then, moving with impossible delicacy for something so large and dangerous, she reached out one appendage and touched Emma's palm. The room collectively exhaled. Zara's scanner emitted a continuous stream of data she'd spent years analyzing. "I'm documenting neurochemical changes in both Zarketh. Oxytocin analogs spiking in patterns I've never seen. Their brains are forming new neural pathways in real time." Karsha made a low rumble toward Scout, who responded with enthusiastic clicking. The adult turned her sensor cluster to Emma and made a sound that the translator struggled with before settling on. "Query. Teaching method." "Teaching method?" Emma blinked. "I just treated her with respect, let her be curious, gave her something useful to do, basic positive reinforcement." "Concept unknown," the translator rendered. "Zarketh young, abandoned after birth. Survival solitary." "Wait, you just leave them alone? As babies?" Emma's expression shifted to something between horror and heartbreak. "That's no wonder they're aggressive. They're terrified and alone." Ambassador Zilax stepped forward through the hologram, his entire posture different, smaller. "Human Emma, you have revealed a truth my species has been blind to for millennia. We believed isolation made us strong. We taught our offspring nothing but fear and survival. We never considered—" He paused. "Cooperation, connection, family. We've been crippling ourselves." Karsha's translated voice was heavy. "Generations of potential lost." Emma looked between the two Zarketh. "It's not too late. You can learn. Scout already has." "Human," Director Jotaro said slowly. "Would you be willing to consult on Zarketh child-rearing practices? This is a fundamental shift for their entire civilization." "I'm a mechanic, not a—" Emma started, then looked at Scout's sensor cluster focused trustingly on her. Yeah, I can help." Karsha touched Emma's hand again, then Scout's carapace. The gesture was unmistakable across species. Gratitude, protection, family. "This changes everything," Vexia said quietly. 3 hours later, Emma sat in the station cafe with coffee and a sandwich. The holographic news feed played overhead. Breaking. Zarketh ambassador announces cultural revolution in child-rearing practices. Scout sat beside her booth, contentedly holding a datapad while Karsha consulted with Galactic Council representatives in the adjacent conference room. "So," the server said nervously, "your friend there, is she going to—" "She's fine," Emma said. "Just keeping me company while I'm on break." Scout chirped agreeably. Emma's comm buzzed. Message from engineering. "Johnson, cooling system in Bay 7 needs work. Also, can Scout help again? She's apparently better than half our crew." Emma chuckled and showed the message to Scout. "Want to learn about cooling systems tomorrow?" Scout's pleased rumble made nearby patrons jump, but Emma just smiled and scratched behind her sensor cluster. "Good girl," she said, taking another bite of her sandwich. The galaxy was changing. Emma had maintenance schedules to keep. Another Tuesday.